All right. Yeah, you just have to accept that you're willing to be recorded, and you can come off video or come off mute and show video. There we go.
But it doesn't do that if you join afterwards, huh?
It's part of joining. When you join, then you'll have to hit the button that says it's okay.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a security thing they have.
Mm-hmm.
Want to make sure you all know we're recording you. Hey, Tad.
Hello.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Dan, did you get can you take the Nigel's presentation and stick it in the meeting so he can navigate from in the meeting?
Yeah, I'll be presenting because I'm going backwards and forwards between the PowerPoint and Dynamics.
You're just gonna do it from your screen?
Yeah, he's just going to share his screen.
All right.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Fod. Give everybody a couple minutes.
Greetings and salutations.
People coming in here.
Look at this. We actually have audience members instead of just the leadership.
Doing good. Good. Everybody a couple minutes. We had about, I think the last I looked, we had about 16 or 17 RSVPs. So we're only at 7. So we'll give it a couple minutes.
I want that option to go and add them to the people list and make their Teams meetings ring.
You're missing a great opportunity to see Nigel. I'm excited to hear what Nigel's got to say.
That's it. Set the expectations high.
Definitely, Nigel. So how's everybody's week going so far? It's almost over. I'm struggling this week because I was on vacation the week before the 4th, and then we got 2 days off during the week of the 4th. So this is the first week I've had to work 5 days, and I don't know that I like this.
How'd you get 2 days off the week of the 4th and you're in manufacturing?
Well, I'm actually a partner. I'm a partner, so we're a CPA firm. We used to, prior to this year, we actually got the whole week off. It was like our mid-year break, and they give us the whole week off. But they quietly took that away this year. Nobody really realized till they looked at our holiday calendar and went, "Hold it! I only got 3rd and 4th." I'm guessing next year, with the 4th being on Saturday, we'll only get the 3rd, or nothing.
Well, you guys might be offended by this, but I've never visited my family, all of whom are not where I live, without there being a business need as well. But for the first time ever, I flew to Indianapolis and spent July 4th, and my birthday was July 6th with my son, daughter, and 2 granddaughters.
Awesome.
With no business whatsoever.
No business. Good for you.
You know what they call that? Progress.
I think they call that a vacation. Is what they call that.
Yeah, but now he can't write off all the expense.
Visiting family is not a vacation.
It was pretty good. I have to say, it was pretty good.
Touche.
And we went to a fireworks display put on by the city, and
Awesome.
it was cool.
Awesome.
And happy belated birthday, Nigel.
Well, thank you very much. And you notice my mug?
I did notice your mug.
What's in it is quintessentially British, and I wonder if any of you can guess what it is.
The guess would be
perhaps?
From
Is it some British tea?
Well, no, it's not actually. No, I already had my tea.
It's rum.
It
Vodka
actually is.
whiskey.
It's Marmite,
Ah,
Mama.
which is the British equivalent of Vegemite you might have heard of.
Mm.
Yep. It's one of the few things that I took with me.
There you go.
Yeah, that and a love of pubs.
All right. Well, we're about 5 minutes in. What do you think, Liz? Should we get started?
Sure.
All righty. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I've got the agenda slide up here. Nope,
are you doing this, Dan?
we are. You didn't see the little checkbox you had to answer when you came into my meeting? You just clicked all the OKs so you were here, right? Yeah.
I see we have Jürgen Weber attending. Hi, Jürgen. Are you calling from Germany? Oh, he's muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
Yeah, I think he might be calling from Germany. How about that?
Wow. Wow. there we
Sorry,
go.
I was muted. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
calling from Germany.
Awesome.
Nice to see you again. By chance, I got this information that this meetup is today. So I signed up yesterday.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to be hosting Jürgen when he comes to the United States. Socially.
Awesome.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Nigel. So it's by chance that I got the chance to attend the community, the BizApp partner community meeting in.
I was so
July.
tempted. Yeah, I was so
Directions?
tempted.
No, that's the partner one, and they're in July, right? A couple weeks.
Oh,
Right. And it's $1,000. I just couldn't justify it.
Yeah. You want to go see who's left at Microsoft and what they're doing.
True.
One speaker that is speaking was affected by the layoffs, but he wrote in LinkedIn that nevertheless he will come and speak.
Excellent.
Wow.
So I don't know how many more are affected.
Yeah.
Hey, and Jürgen, you could be doing this presentation. If you find something I say that could be said better, let me know.
To be honest, I had a very tough day today, and I'm here at the moment. That's why I don't have a camera. I'm here in my kitchen preparing something to eat, but I will listen.
Okay.
And,
all right, Dan. Sorry, stole some of your time there.
No, that's
no.
Yeah, this is what meetups are about, right? For us to all make connections and keep the community going. So with that, again, just quick agenda here. We'll do some welcome and Doug intro. I was just going to do a couple minutes on a couple things in the latest .44, and then turn it over to Nigel, who's going to share his wisdom with us about production supervisors and helping them with that grind. So with that, just introduce real quick our leadership team here on our resurrected Doug for Manufacturing meetup group. Tad and I, they're on Tom. His real name goes by Tad, shows Tom here in Teams, but we met with a bunch of companies at DynamicsCon. There was a lot of interest in getting this Doug for Manufacturing back up and running. So Tad and I, with Liz's help, have got this started. You probably see a couple placeholders out there for third and fourth quarter. We're still looking for content for those. So if you know people that are interested in speaking, anything like that, please reach out to any of us. Share that information. We'd love to do that. Right now, we're keeping this user group virtual because, again, we want to be able to go from SoCal, where I'm at today, all the way to Germany and have everybody together, right? So that's the plan here. So with that, I'll pass it over to Liz. You want to cover your Doug slides here real quick?
I sure will. Thank you so much, Dan, and welcome everybody to this Doug for Manufacturing meetup. My name is Liz Hallen, as Dan mentioned, and just wanted to spend a couple of minutes and tell you a little bit about Dynamics User Group, or DUG, as we lovingly refer it to, in case you're not familiar. So we are a free community for most everybody that is interested in business applications. We are an individual membership that, again, has no charge to it, and we've grown to over 47,000 community members worldwide. Dan, you can go to the next slide. And as we get started today, just as a reminder, our real core mission here is to bring and educate all of you and allow you to network and learn from each other. This is not necessarily a place for you to sell or recruit. We just want to make this to be as open of an environment as we possibly can. So thank you so much for being here, and we love everybody to participate. So please chime in, and that's what we're all here for, is to learn from each other and share our ideas. In addition to the DUG Meetup program, we do have several others that are part of your free membership. We have online discussion forums, which have been around for quite some time. We also offer virtual webinars. Our conferences are DynamicsCon, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail just in a couple of seconds. This is a virtual DUG meetup. As Dan mentioned, we are recording today, and this recording, as well as all of our other DUG meetup recordings, our DUG webinars that we host, are all on our YouTube channel. We have over 700 YouTube videos on there today, with presentations by experts such as Nigel sharing with us today. So some really great content out there for everybody to consume. So you can use that QR code to sign up for your free membership and get access to all of these wonderful resources. Moving on, in addition to our local DUG meetups, we do also offer DynamicsCon regional conferences. We have a few more coming up yet this year and are already starting for 2026. So if you are in the Denver area, Ohio area, Texas area, or Florida area, we would love to see you. Our regional events are free, and they are usually one full day. And they cover multiple tracks of content, so a handful of sessions available, as well as multiple sponsors and networking opportunities. So would love to see one of you at one of our regional events. For those across and outside of North America, we are going international this year with our regionals. So we will actually be in Africa next week and the week after, and coming to the hometown of Navision, hosting our first European regional event in Copenhagen in September at the Microsoft office. And if you want something a little bit larger in scale, we would also love to see all of you in May of 2026 in Las Vegas. We're going to be hosting our 6th annual DynamicsCon conference. This is a 3.5-day event with hundreds of sessions, a large expo hall with lots of vendors for you to find solutions as well. We do currently have our early bird registration price available for $9.99. That is the least expensive you will see, and we would love to have you join us in Vegas. So I will turn it back over to you, Dan, unless anybody has any questions.
Thanks so much, Liz, and I will second that for registering for DynamicsCon. I can't believe it's the 6th one. I remember the first one here in Anaheim when
I know that was a little while ago. It's going to be exciting.
It was so awesome. So with that, I just wanted to go over, I don't know how many of you have had a chance to jump into .44 yet. I know we're still getting our arms around it, testing things like that, but it is out in auto update already this month. So, there's some links, and we'll share this slide deck out as well, but there's some links to see what's in this new version, and probably what you all have heard or know is really the agents, right? Microsoft is finally expanding Copilot into some agents inside of D365. The other thing they did is came out with this new thing called the immersive homepage. I don't know if I like it yet. I'll reserve judgment till I play with it for a while, but this is kind of what it looks. It really depends how much work items you have, but you'll see your agent activity. So there's the supplier communication agent and the account reconciliation agent. So the account reconciliation agent, again, my background, I'm a CPA, so I'm worried about reconciling all my ledgers. I now have an agent that is going to go look at these various areas and make sure our AP accounts reconcile between the GL and the subledger, AR, bank, and it helps us mitigate those exceptions. So that's the account reconciliation agent. And this is kind of the mitigation of that. And then I'm going to jump over. I've got my system running here. I'm going to jump into agents. So you can see setting these agents up. There's the library that you set these up from. So I've got my supplier communication agent that I can still set up from. And that supplier communication agent does two different things. It helps me send follow-up to vendors. So if they've got unconfirmed or late POs, it will write the emails for me automatically. And then it also will look at emails I receive from suppliers and do updates for those. So if I jump over real quick, I think I have one. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'll show you guys the immersive homepage. So I always choose personalized. I need user options. You can tell it's a live demo here. I turn off the immersive homepage because I don't know that I like it yet, but I'm going to go turn it back on and just refresh because the immersive homepage shows this a little better. So I'll go to my homepage and so now you're seeing I have 21 draft emails that the system has written for me. So I can come in here and review these draft emails. It's drafted. Hey, we have this PO. It's late. It's got that information. So you configure how you want this email to be worded, and it will do that for you. So it has done that. And then also I did some testing. The agent has actually detected. I got an email from Best Supplier Europe, and they've given me a new confirmation date, and there's a change to the quantity. So I can actually apply these suggestions, confirm that purchase order right for this agent. So it's some cool stuff that's coming. I think they're still technically in preview, but they're in GA preview that you can actually put them in GA. So with that, I think I see a question in there. Any questions on .44 or anything, or I'll pass it back over. I'll pass it off to Nigel. All right, Nigel, sounds like you're on. I'll stop sharing, let you take over and give these guys some education on some manufacturing. You're on mute, Nigel.
All right.
There we go.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, you're good.
All right. So believe it or not, about, 55 years ago, I was a supervisor. I supervised a sheet metal shop. And that picture on the right looks remarkably like how I used to look. Just kidding. All right. So this is what I want to cover. It's a little ambitious. If I don't get through it all, the PowerPoint will. So I've tried to put some of the stuff that I consider to be less critical towards the end. Please note my contact information. I am at a stage in my career where, frankly, I'm doing it for the love. So I have an open invitation, anybody on the call. If you've got a quick question that you want to get some help with, anything to do with manufacturing, just shoot me an email to that email. Also, if you want this PowerPoint, you probably can get it through Dan and through Doug, but if you want to get it from me, just shoot me an email and I'll send you the PowerPoint. So first question, I always like to start with this question. Why do we need a production supervisor? Why do we need to plan? Why do we need to schedule? And I always bring it down to this, right? What we're aiming for is to have better management of our entire manufacturing processes, leveraging the data to obtain higher service, more on-time delivery in full, doing it with less inventory, and doing it at a lower operating cost. These things are typically in conflict at a certain level of control. You know, sometimes you can improve customer service by carrying more of the right inventory. Sometimes you can improve it by better expediting, but typically that means increased cost. What we want to do is we want to basically raise the triangle, right, by having just better control. So I do want to talk about planning versus scheduling. Anybody want to tell me the difference between planning and scheduling? You have to unmute yourselves.
So planning, you're taking all the things you're supposed to do and saying we're going to do them. And scheduling, you're going further and saying this is when and where I'm going to do them.
Exactly. Well said. I like to make it even simpler. Planning manages planned orders and scheduling manages production or batch orders, right? That's my easy definition, if you will. And I do think they're very different. I actually, other things being equal, I like to have different people doing my planning and doing my scheduling, because my big push for manufacturers is to understand that when you're planning, best practice is to plan by item site or item warehouse, not by orders. If you're planning by orders, then you're kind of expediting ahead of time. But then scheduling is better done by the resources or the collections of resources. That might be resource groups, or it might be resources sharing the same resource capability, or some other combination. This guy happens to be really good at these particular areas on the shop floor, so we give him a list or her a list. So I want to put scheduling in context, right? So this isn't production supervisor work, but it is the work that gets done to set the scene for the production supervisor. And I consider this to be very, very important. And also, in my personal opinion, it's not well done across manufacturers. And I say that regardless of the ERP system that they're using. So here's some of my things. Sales and operations planning is top of my list, right? A lot of companies are either not doing this or not doing it very well. It's not something you really do much inside of Dynamics, although a lot of the data that's needed for sales and operations planning is sitting there waiting to be mined. What do I mean by sales and operations planning? Well, I define it, believe it or not, as just a meeting. Most companies that are doing it and doing it well is monthly, and it is aimed at the top executives, the C-suite. But you know, the demand planner, the master planner, the operations VP, finance VP, they're all in there looking at how do we manage our supply to meet our demand. Some of the things that they will look at is, you know, to make it better, improve demand management. In my personal opinion, a lot of people spend a ton of money on supply, expediting, and they don't even know the cost, but it's probably huge. And they don't spend much on demand management. If you're off 10% on your forecast, it's pretty, and you are making to forecast, it's pretty much the equivalent to being 10% off on your supply because of delays or machines down or interruptions or surprises. So spend some money, in my opinion, on improved demand management. This is the big deal, in my opinion. Chase versus level load. Chase means as my demand changes, I am going to exactly match that with changes in supply. So I'm going to chase those fluctuations. They may be seasonal or they may be surprises. Level load is basically saying, I want to make it the same rate the whole time, and I'm going to flex my inventory levels. The classic example is fireworks, right? I'm going to make fireworks all year, so I've got enough by July 4th to meet demand. So those are the two extremes. And in my opinion, every business should be looking at where between those two extremes should they be by product line. So it ends up being, if you will, an inventory and a capacity plan. So under chase, you're flexing capacity. Under level load, you're flexing inventory. And that should be a strategic decision that the C-suite is intimately involved with. I'm not going to spend much time on it today, but there is a whole approach called master production scheduling, where, believe it or not, you don't let MRP decide, you decide. In a make to stock environment, you come up with a master production schedule for what you want to make. And you let MRP critique it, but by using the horizons, you can say for this number of weeks, please don't put any new planned orders in, leave the ones that I've got there. So that is master production scheduling. If you were configured to order, it might be lower in the BOM, right? The modules that you configure together. But the idea is that you're using MRP not to dictate what you make, but to critique what you're telling it you want to make through the action messages. I think another theme that I want to get across is MRP is dumb. It only knows how to net against inventory, offset by the lead time, and explode. The most complicated math it does is to multiply by the bill of materials quantities. So you need to understand that. When MRP, using all the assumptions you've given it about lead time and forecasts and safety stocks, all it's going to do is say, with the assumptions you've given me, we can't do it, right? It totally relies on the planner to actually solve problems. Now, Copilot may change that, but for today, the only good planning is done by good planners. MRP is not a planner. This is, the big deal, in my opinion, is I want to plan and not expedite. Expediting is by orders. But think about this. The exceptions by orders are multiples higher than the exceptions by items. If I've got one troublesome raw material, it could be affecting tons of orders. And if you're looking at the orders, that's tons of exceptions. And a lot of people phoning a lot of people, when if you've actually looked at the action messages, you're looking at it by item and you're solving it for that troublesome item, and everything else gets fixed. Smart safety stock resets. It's amazing to me how many people don't know about the safety stock journal in Dynamics. I'm not going to spend any time on it today, but there's a lot of help in there to quickly reset your safety stock levels to the current circumstances. This is my big deal. I think every manufacturer needs to get obsessive about the action messages, not the delays, because the delays are basically by order. The actions are basically by item. So if you're focused on delays, in my books, you're essentially expediting. And the way we do that is every action message, we do an explode up. Hey, is this affecting sales? No, okay, maybe I'll move on, right? Oh, it's just safety stock, or it's a forecast, right? And forecasts are always wrong. When you really get on top of the action messages affecting sales, then maybe you start looking at some of those other things. Explode down to find out how to solve it, right? So I explode up, oh gosh, it's affecting a sales order. So I explode down, and it'll go all the way down the bill of materials. And what you want to see there is on hand. What you don't want to see is planned supply, either planned transfer, planned purchase, or planned production. And so you can see very quickly what is causing the problem, and then try and solve it. And if you think about all the ways that planner solve supply-demand problems, by moving resources around, by stealing from another order, by doing subcontract, none of those are things that MRP today actually suggests for you. And then looking at the requirements, the net requirements and the requirements profile. So net requirements from the release product, the requirements profile is right from the planned orders and most of the screens where you're looking at a particular planned order. I actually have been trying to persuade Microsoft to always do the net because it looks at all the other warehouses. And one of the ways that a planner might solve a problem is by getting inventory from another warehouse. Band shortage reporting. I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but in my books, the flip side of being obsessive about action messages is don't do shortage reporting. We want to look at the cause, not the effect. And if we've solved all the causes, there are no effects, right? It's amazing how many manufacturers are totally dependent on shortage reporting still. And then ABC smarts, right? Treating your A class, B class, and C class differently for safety stock and lot sizing, and maybe taking into account the size of the item because you don't want to tie up a lot of inventory space. Whatever are your criteria, treat different items with different kind of logic. So this is my point. The better the planning, the easier the scheduling. And here's my punchline. All right. There should never be someone calling the planner asking, where's my stuff? And that could be customer service. It could be the customer. But here we're really talking about the shop floor. I don't have my parts. The planner should already have called them because he would try to solve it and couldn't solve it. Okay. Let's talk about finite versus infinite planning. What we're talking about here is capacity and materials. You have the option in Dynamics to say, I want MRP to work with an assumption that I have finite capacity. And then what it will do, it will come up with where it thinks it needs it. And that could be a production order or a batch orders. And it will move it to where there is capacity. And there's two consequences to that I don't like. One is that when you look at your resource capacity plans, nothing is overloaded because you moved it. So suddenly you've turned the problem from this work center is a problem to all these orders are now late. And guess what? It's going back to planning by orders instead of planning by items and resources. So I'm a big fan of doing infinite planning. And trying to solve the capacity problems before you have to release those orders, right? I want to know where I've got a capacity problem and try at least to fix it. Subcontract, put on extra shift, do overtime. Let's at least try and get ahead of the game. However, when it comes to scheduling, I'm a big fan of it. And I used to not be, right? When the software was not as capable and mature as it is now, especially with the Gantt chart capabilities, I used to say do finite scheduling, do infinite scheduling, but then have the person who's loading the shop floor, the scheduler, fix things so that they're not over capacity as they release them. Hopefully, if we've done a good job with planning, there shouldn't be too many of those problems because we already solved the capacity problems. Same with finite materials. There's two kinds of scheduling in Dynamics. Operation scheduling, which only works to the date and manages things at the group level rather than the resource level. So if you've got like 5 machines, unless you've got something that specifically can only run on one machine and your routing says it, it will basically plan at the group level for all 5 machines. Job scheduling is the alternative, and job scheduling is basically, it goes down, believe it or not, I believe to the millisecond. But it's, it is calculating the time of day that everything needs to start and the time of day that everything needs to finish. And it will always do it at the resource level. If you are not using finite scheduling, which would select what it thinks is the most appropriate resource, then it will either be the first resource on the list, or Microsoft has recently added a new feature where it randomizes which resource is going to get it if you're not finite scheduling. I actually was a decent fan of first on the list because the scheduler now knows they've got to decide which machine or which assembly worker they are going to select to do this work. And now keep in mind that if you're doing advanced warehouse, every resource has an input location. So as you are deciding which resource gets it, whether finite scheduler is doing it or you're doing it, when you do release that order, it knows exactly where to take that material. And it knows exactly where the production output is going to arrive. And then that last in red there, you can't use the Gantt chart for operation scheduling. So if you want to, and I'm a big fan of it now. So all my customers, I recommend job scheduling, other things being equal. We can't talk about the supervisor without talking about production floor execution. That is the name Microsoft gives the manufacturing execution system, the MES, in Dynamics. And it allows operators to real-time update the system with their progress. And that could be, I started something, I finished something, I scrapped something, I used this serial number, I used that batch number, I created this serial number. They can say, I picked up my materials if there's not a separate material handler or a water spider. So, you know, it keeps the system up to date. And if you think about it, the Gantt chart, which we'll be looking at later, if you're not reporting completions of operations, then it's already out of date. And it makes using the Gantt chart a lot more challenging. So here's another screen from production floor execution. This is the one showing all the work that's outstanding, which you can very easily filter to just your jobs. And then here's some of the things that it can do now. It's tied to a machine and it's coming back with critical metrics on the status of that machine. The other big thing that Microsoft has done recently is they've done some tracking enhancements. So we never used to be able to do this, but if you are making let's say a laptop, and you want to know, you're making 15 of them or 1,000 of them, and you want to know what serial numbers went into what serial number of laptop, it was really hard to do. You pretty much had to have a production order of size 1, right? But now you can basically scan the serial numbers that you used and the serial number that you made, and it's all done for you. Same with batches. I really am very excited about that new capability. Now, the release to shop floor, I'm actually going to go into Dynamics now. And I'm going to go to production floor management. Now, unfortunately, this is the only way to get to the orders to release screen. There is no hamburger navigation to the screen I'm about to show you. And I have been amazed about how many people, including consultants sometimes, that don't know this form exists, and it is so powerful. So I'm looking at production orders to release. I'm a scheduler, or I'm a supervisor. First thing I'm going to do is change this date. That's today by default. So you know, how far out do I want to look when I'm deciding what to put out on the shop floor? Well, most people are going to look at least a couple of weeks. So I'm going to go out to the end of the month. And you'll notice that the production orders to release is now 7, not 2. When I click on this guy, it takes me to what I consider to be a beautiful screen. So this is those 7 orders. And this little sign here means I've got material problems. If I click on it, then down below, it shows me what material problems I have. And you'll notice I got the M8 and the M22 that I got problems with. And it's showing me how much do I have on hand settled, how much do I have order settled, and how much do I have planned order settled. So this is bad news, right? This guy, we don't even have it on order. There's a planned order. MRP sees a need for has actually placed that order. If I look at another one here, this one's got order settled. So this one does have an incoming order. But notice over here, you've got this physical inventory. So there's plenty of inventory, but it's just that this order is low on the totem pole. This stuff is needed for other orders, including the ones in this list. All right. So you get these clues here, and here's the available physical, right? You get these clues. Oh, I might be able to solve this. Now what you can do is you can go to the explode. And not only will it show you that list, it'll go all the way down the bill of materials. So in this particular case, it is only going one level because I've got that purchase order. Let's take the other example, this first one, and do an explode. And you'll see that, okay, it's still one level. But I've got these planned orders here. And if you click on any of these, it will actually show you those planned orders, and you can go to that planned order. Now you can do an explode up and see what else is competing with this guy for that particular order. Or you can go to the net requirements very quickly from there. But notice we've got this explosion here, so I can explode down and then explode up to see what everything else is being done with that supply order. All right, having said all that, notice that we've got release all available. That would basically immediately, especially if you're using advanced warehouse, it's going to create all the work to pick those materials, assuming they're not backflashed. But what I want to do right now, I want to select all these orders, and I want to go to the Gantt chart. And hopefully this won't take too long. If I go back to the release to floor, this is how I described it. It's a workbench to expose, diagnose, and optimize use of available materials and available capacity at release. All the things I'm showing you, well, especially the Gantt chart, it doesn't have to be just at release. You're going back looking later at the stuff that's already been out there for a while. And also not just the first operation, but the subsequent operations. And what it does, it facilitates selecting the best resource for this moment. Its usefulness depends on current up-to-date data, and that's why I was saying production floor execution can be really helpful. And it's much easier with single-step routings. I'll show you that in a moment. You're managing by production units, resources, and not items. Works well with advanced warehouse and input locations on resources. So if I go, here is my Gantt chart. And I can do a bunch of stuff in here. I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but here's my material availability. If I had a capacity problem, I actually released all these, scheduled all these with job scheduling with finite on, so I don't have a capacity problem right now. But let's see if I can make one. Nope, that didn't make one. Yeah, so there I'm overloaded on capacity, this resource. So this is the resource view, and I can do things like I can schedule a round job. So what that does, it basically, when I moved that, I didn't move the operations that are before it or after it. The schedule around job moves the other operations to be in sync. Schedule next jobs is the next steps in the routing. Schedule previous jobs is the prior steps in the routing. This one does both. I can also schedule from material availability. That's pretty cool, right? So if I click that guy, it'll move this operation to when MRP thinks the materials will be available. I can also, by going up to under the Gantt chart, I can switch to the order view. And that will show me for each order all the operation steps. And this is why I say, if you have single step routings, and a lot of the manufacturers I've worked with do, they just have single step routings, mostly process industry, right? But you don't need to go to this screen ever. If you're single step operations, you can just stay on the resource screen. Let's go back to it. Now, if I go to activities here, and I got a job I've selected, and I hit schedule job, then I've got all my choices of scheduling. But now I can say what date I really want to do it and time I want to do it rather than dragging it like I did before. And I can hit this change resource. If I hit the change resource, then I can select another resource. And it will tell me all the other resources that it thinks are applicable. It will let me pick anything because I might be smarter than the system. But if it's a machine with the same capabilities or in the same resource group, this checkbox will be checked. Pretty nice. Now, I could also have done that by dragging it to another resource. All right, I'm doing something wrong. But bottom line is that I can also do it by dragging and dropping from one resource to another. Some of the things I can do here, I can mess with colors. It's not very clever, but it is somewhat clever. I can mess with the timeline. Do I want it, the scale right now? Let's go to the top. is in days. If I could mess and make it half days, I could make it by the hour. So content, this is where I switched on that I want to see my material availability. This is not on by default. And if I look at the general tab here, why am I not remembering it right now? Okay, there's somewhere where you can say, I want to see where I'm over capacity. All right. And those are not on by default, so you want to switch them on. This is what I get as a result of saying I want that material availability to be displayed. Lots of choices here. One of the ones I want to show you is dispatching. So under dispatching, I've only got one order here. But if I had a bunch of orders, then I could select them all. And I could schedule from here if I moved them, and I can go up or down. So this is controlling the sequence of orders that I want the shop floor to operate in. I've worked with manufacturers that have this screen up all the time at that machine, and they set a refresh rate maybe every 30 seconds. So when the scheduler moves something around, it shows up immediately, or pretty much immediately, on the screen right by the person or right by the machine. And once you've moved them around, you have to schedule them. You go through scheduling again so that it knows to update all the prior steps and subsequent steps. This is pretty powerful, though. And you can get to that dispatch list also from the resource itself. Here I do include some screenshots in the PowerPoint, mainly for your reference, but I've covered all these already. Some tips I have. First of all, most manufacturers I've worked with, it was more important to fix the planning first, right? Planning sets the scene, and if it's a mess, then your scheduling is a mess. And in my books, that means education and maybe hiring. A lot of people, unfortunately, in the C-suite think they buy an ERP system. What does that mean? Enterprise resource planning, and they're going to need less planners. But like I said, MRP is dumb. What having a good ERP system like Dynamics means is that those planners have much more tools that they can use to find the problems and solve them. And that might mean you need less, but it also might mean you need more, because they're doing so much more high value add activity because now they're informed. So I think it's a mistake, especially when you first go live. One of the things I did with another ERP system when I first came to the United States was I had people from purchasing, I had people from operations, I had my expediters, I made them all planners. And we came in at the weekend, I rolled my sleeves up, I was a planner, and we did overtime, because when you first go live, action messages are through the roof. And the key is to get on top of them. And it's amazing how many manufacturers just give up. They basically say, I can't do it. Now, distributors, sometimes I think that's justifiable. If you're trying to plan 300,000 items, action messages, you may just have to use the system for releasing orders and then hope for the best, right? I do recommend using job scheduling. I recommend using finite when scheduling, infinite when planning. I do recommend using resource capabilities in some cases rather than resource groups. Now, you have to put your resource in a resource group, so they're there. But I like resource capabilities. I got this machine out of these 5 layers. It has a certain capability. And on the routing, I say, hey, for this item, I need that capability. And MRP will take that into account. And finite scheduling will take that into account. Use the job scheduling from the workbench. And Gantt chart. Be aware of resources with similar capabilities but distinct speeds. When you have a production order and you move it from one resource to another, it's going to keep the same run times and setup times and so on and so forth. In many cases, that's not so important. You're not trying to be that precise in most cases, but you've got to be aware that if you're putting it on a faster machine, it thinks it's going to take the speed of the slower machine you had it on originally, and vice versa. So be aware of that. If that's the case, you really have to go back to the created state and change the routing to the one that's right for that particular item. Strongly consider production floor execution, even if all you're doing is completions on it, so that the system is up to date. Maybe you're not using it for productivity measurement. You're just using it to say, okay, I made 15 or I scrapped 5, right? Let's talk a little bit about lean manufacturing. Lean is in Dynamics, believe it or not, it's been around a long time. It was originally designed based on the Toyota production system, which is the Bible for lean manufacturing. It revolves around something called production flows. This is where you define the flow of materials going through your work cells, and it revolves around Kanbans. Kanbans are basically, that's Japanese for ticket. It's a bit like kind of a 2-bin system. So when your Kanban is empty, you can work on it. If it's partial, you can work on the remainder. When you complete a Kanban, it's now full. When it's full, you can't work on it. When somebody takes that material away, it will empty the Kanban, and now you can work on it. So all Kanbans full, it does 2 things. Number one, it sets a work in process limit, which also, if you think about it, is a lead time limit, right? So you limit your lead time within constraints and your work in process within constraints, and it stops work. That sounds scary, but the whole idea is that you'll have a SWAT team. You know, in many companies, they have a blue flashing light when somebody has all their Kanbans full, and the industrial engineers and the supervisor jumps on that to try and solve the problem. And it may be an upstream cell that's blocking right now. It uses, I skipped past this one because I wanted to cover those. Lean done well actually needs less supervision. We're talking about the supervisors today. The idea is that the cell operators, the workers, are supervising themselves much more. So that's part of the philosophy, if you will, of lean. It uses takt times, which is like the cycle time, the speed that stuff is coming off, the rate, for scheduling and performance measures. And also the percentage of full Kanbans at the work center. It has a red, green, yellow kind of status for the work cell. There are 3 control boards. One for the worker, basically saying, here's my list of Kanbans that I can work on. You can scan it or you can select it and say, okay, I'm started or I'm finished. I've done this many. I've scrapped this many. That's all done on the process jobs back board. There's another board for transfer jobs. That's basically the material handler. In Lean, they call that guy or gal a water spider. But there's also something called a scheduling board, which the way you set up Lean, you can decide to use or not use. When Kanbans are emptied and you're using this, they show up on the scheduling board. And now your supervisor or your production lead decides which ones they want to put on the process board. And I think that's especially if you've got savvy production leads or supervisors, that's not a bad idea. Now they can control the sequence that work gets done. I'm not going to go into dynamics for this, but here's some screenshots. So this is the board for process jobs for Workcell 1250. And here's all the Kanbans. Up here, you could scan it. You could say, and again, this is something you can configure. You can actually say the only thing I'm ever going to do is complete a Kanban or empty it. But the start, transfer, the prepare, here's the start and complete, I beg your pardon. This is for the materials. That's configurable. Here's the lean board for transfer jobs. So this is the one the water spider would be using. Similar kind of stuff, complete and empty. And this is the lean scheduling board that the lead would be using to say, okay, I want these particular orders to be released to the board for production. Okay, kind of we don't have time to get into the whole of lean, but that was my best shot at giving you some feel for it. I did want to show this particular worksheet. It's not really for the supervisor, it's more for engineering. But the supervisor, a good supervisor, is going to be interested in this too. What product change requests are coming? Which ones are missing an active BOM? Which ones are missing, which variants are missing an active BOM? And so on, right? This can be pretty useful. I do want to go back into Dynamics now, and I want to go to my, I think I've got that, okay. Important point. Once you've moved all your stuff in the Gantt chart, it will ask you to save it before extending. We didn't make any changes here that were persistent, right? And we may have moved something that's now invalid, and I'm sure we have actually. So if I hit yes, it's probably, yeah, it's going to tell me I've got one order that violates the job sequence. So I've got an operation that now is later than a subsequent operation. And it gives me some information here to go find it, and I can try and fix it. And I can use that schedule around or schedule next or schedule prior to help me solve that. So I am just going to go back and say no. Let's go to our, I want to get to our workspace. I think I've switched on the same thing. So what I have to do now is go to my workspaces and find master planning. This is one screen, and I'm really, this is just a tip. It's kind of, I'm throwing it in. It's not really for the supervisor, but I want you to see that in the workspace, and this is another thing that as the system is delivered, you can only do from the workspace, and that's to see all the planned orders that are actually delaying sales, right? Unfortunately, it's only the order that's tied or pegged to the sales line, right? And any one of these could be actually pegged to multiple sales orders. Notice that I've got some inquiries that I can do here. I can also do some modification, but the trick I want to show you is down below. See more. If you hit the see more, it will take this list and put it into your regular planned order screen. Now, if I go to my advanced filter, it actually tells me the filter that Microsoft used to only see what was delaying sales. Well, now I can use this filter and filter it further to my items. So every day when I come in, I can look at the planned orders that are out there that if I don't do something about them, they're going to delay sales. What I'd love to see is all the planned orders below these ones in the bill of materials that also would end up delaying the sale, because I want to find the cause, not the effect. Keep in mind, in a distribution world, or even in a manufacturing world that has stores or branches, the order that is pegged to the sales order is a transfer. So what I'm going to see in my list here is transfers, and I'm going to have to do that explode down to find out what else is dependent on this guy. Okay, that was explode up. If I go up here and I do an explode down, okay, it's a purchase order, right? So there's nothing below it. All right. So that was my presentation. I think we got done early, Dan, but obviously we want to leave it open for questions. Right here on the screen, you'll see my contact information again. I do love helping people out. So if you've got something you want to ask me, feel free to send an email. If you want to get this deck, send me an email. So open up for questions now.
Hey, Nigel, you said you couldn't see the lower level details in the which things affect sales, but you should be able to do that if you get advanced messages.
No. What I'm saying, that you're misunderstanding. What I'm saying there is that filter only looks down one level in the bottom. I would love a filter that looked all the way down. And so show me all the planned orders that have an action message that if you did an explode up, you would see sales orders. Does that make sense? It's a little tricky.
Thought I did something similar to that already, but I'll have to go double check and make sure I'm not just deluding myself.
Tad, if you have, I would love to see how you did it. My gut feel is that you can only do it with like BI reporting or some kind of customization. I would love to see the action messages themselves customized, that any action message that if you hit the explode up would say sales order anywhere, that planned order would get flagged. And you'd have another column in the action message area of the planned order and on the net requirements screen that says, hey, this planned order is delaying sales, even if it's like 5 levels down in the BOM.
Good point.
Good question, though. Any other questions? I'm sure you won't mind me giving you some time back. Dan, any thoughts?
Something.
Great session, Nigel. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other thoughts, questions for Nigel?
I had one question, Nigel. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Yep. And I'm sure it's going to be a good one.
I was not sure if my microphone from the laptop works. I learned something new again, or a lot of things new again. Thank you. It's always nice to go with together with you through all these topics. Yeah, so there's always something we can learn from you. And today it was the sequencing. So I didn't know that we can do the sequencing from the Gantt chart.
Yeah.
But this is sequencing only on the job level. So I can, for one resource, I can sequence the jobs. It's not that I can say I can sequence the entire production order.
Right.
Like the other sequencing
you're exactly
feature
right.
that.
Yeah. So planning, and I think it makes sense, right? Planning, you can do sequencing in there. I don't think it's very good, but you can do it, right? The classic example is paint. I want to do white through black and then do a clean out, right? But unfortunately, you have to tell it the cycle that you're assuming. So I want to go through my colors every 10 days or something. And real world just isn't like that, right? Depending on your demand and your product mix, one time you might get through it in 8, another time you might get through it in 15. But it will basically take all the planned orders for the next 10 days and resequence them from light to dark. But if you've done that in planning, then it should already be somewhat lined up for scheduling. But I'm a big believer that scheduling needs to be done by people today. Copilot's going to help in the future, but it's really not helping that area much today. What I would love is more intelligence in the color scheming of the production orders. By the way, you can also show planned orders in that Gantt chart. It's an option. But so I would want a color scheme that would help me. Hey, these two orders have a very similar setup, right? So give them a color. And then the scheduler is informed, try and put them back to back, right? Or the sequencing, right? Give me a color that's the color of the paint, right? But unfortunately, we don't have that capability today.
We don't?
We don't. If you look at the things that you can set the colors against, they're pretty limited. So you can say production unit. I guess in theory, you could have a ton of production units and do it that way. Let's go in and have a look. Let me see.
So maybe you can answer, if it's not actually used, there is a color field on the production order. Does that show up in any of the graphical interfaces that you've explored?
I don't believe so. And if I'm wrong, let me know. I mean, honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
It used to in older versions, and I'm just wondering if the color field is a carryover and not actually used anymore.
I picked the wrong one. Let me go and show you. We got time, so I picked the wrong workspace. Oh, I'm not in workspaces. Another thing I failed to show you, I should have, not only can you set the date here, but if you go to configure workspace, you can filter based on production unit, resource group, or resource. I chose the production unit 120. If I hit the drop down, that is the speaker production area. So again, if this is your workspace, you can configure it however you want. But if I go now to the production orders to release and I select them all and I go to the Gantt chart, and I go to colors, these are the options, right? So I can highlight, right? So I can pick an order and highlight it. And then when I go look at the order view, all the other operations on that order are that same color.
Go to the production tab.
Yep.
And turn off the theme colors. And then use the production color.
Ah, okay. Good to know. But, keep in mind, I want that color to be set coming out of MRP, right?
So the way I would, so if you turn on use production color, it's going to color it it's going to color it at the production order level, not the task level. So if you want task level, that's a limitation. But if you just want it at the production order level, then I would anticipate maybe some Power Automate or something like that to go and set the color field on the production order based on some
makes sense.
Characteristics that you find. Yeah,
no, that totally makes sense. All right, and you do have it for planned production and you have it for project. And I heard that this release to Workbench, not the Gantt chart, but the release to Floor, now works with work orders for asset management as well. Perfect. So it's not this screen, it's a different screen, but it works in a very similar, if not the exact same way.
Perfect, because we're just starting down that road.
Yeah, it's very recent, very recent. In fact, I found it looking at I clicked on the link that Dan had in the PowerPoint to look at what was coming out of that latest release, and that was one of the things. All right, any other questions from anybody?
What do you think the biggest complaint or biggest concern would a production supervisor have on a day-to-day basis, based on all the people you've talked to over the years?
Yeah. Well, there's a ton of them that are not using that release workbench or the Gantt chart. And my guess is their biggest complaint would be that the planning sucked, right? And that what was put in front of them was really not very achievable. And that line that I had, where's my parts, right? Where's my stuff? I can't make this without the materials. Why don't I have the materials is the single biggest thing that production supervisors would be complaining about. And my personal feeling is getting top of action messages is the way to make your supervisor happy by having it come out of planning. Now, in terms of what they're doing themselves, I think I didn't say this, but the production floor execution, you've got some options in there about validating. Right. And there's a ton of exception reporting. Hey, you just finished an operation, or you told me you finished an operation and the operation before it wasn't finished. And you can set the system up that all those exceptions, everything that happened in production floor execution has to be approved by a lead before it actually updates the production orders. Which I think was really troublesome. Leads would have to stay at the end of the day and solve all these exceptions, and some of it was pretty tricky, right? Because you're relying on somebody, scanning the right thing, keying the right quantity, you name it. It's not hard for a shop floor operator to make a mistake. More recently, I'm told that Microsoft has allowed more of just put it on automatic, and okay, there's going to be things that went wrong, but at least the production order is going to be updated quickly for the ones where there's no exceptions. So I think those are the biggest complaints and issues that I've heard. Can you think of any others?
I think where my parts is probably the big one. The other things that I hear is they didn't give me enough time. You didn't account for the fact that the tool broke, which is all just a cultural thing of making sure that you've got the people who write the plans and the people who execute the plans to talk to each other and close the loop.
Yeah, excellent point. And you know, I am a big fan of the relatively new asset management module. I think it is a beautiful piece of code where they've really they're using the same planning, they're using the same advanced warehouse, they're using the same payables and purchasing to the point where you could take somebody who's doing that for MRO items and put them in the direct job, and they'd know how to do it. They'd at least know how to use the system. But you know, all of that, you know, when a machine is scheduled to be down for preventive maintenance, when it's down because it broke, that all shows in the Gantt chart. Yeah, I think the combination of asset management with production and the combination of advanced warehouse with production they're both beautiful. And so many other ERP systems are not able to do that. You know, if you're interfacing to a third-party warehouse management system, managing production becomes much harder.
Let's see how long it takes them to tie assets to resources. So when the asset goes down for maintenance or
I was told it already does. Yeah, I was told it already does.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, it ties up the capacity, right? And I'm told that shows up. It looks like a job, from what I've been told. So you know that there is maintenance work going on in amongst all of your jobs that you're scheduling.
But when you have let's say a plant maintenance, so you have a proactive or whatever a plant maintenance where you don't have a work order, then this is not considered with MRP. So let's say your machine is planned for maintenance next day or whatever, and then you run master planning. You have no option to that master planning knows that this machine is more or less planned. I think it's only then considered if you have a work order already in the system. Then I think capacity is considered.
Interesting. I did not know that. I did not know that.
I believe it is that way. So because it's a long time ago that I was discussing that for a customer, but I think maybe it changed already. And there were also at the beginning, I think not even when you had a work order, it was shown, but it was not considered by planning. It was maybe considered, you can consider it in the Gantt maybe for scheduling, but I don't know, MRP, I think, did not consider it.
Well, you know, I mean, the thing is that asset management uses project accounting, right? And I do know that when you switch project on for your Gantt chart, somebody booking resource in projects, it shows up on the Gantt chart. So I've seen that with, for instance, I like to use project accounting for pre-production. I got a brand new product, and R&D wants to take over this part of the shop floor to run pre-production. So rather than item numbers, they're basically just booking resource as a project activity. And I'm pretty confident that shows up. And I assumed from that preventive maintenance, which is, you know, inside of a project, would show up. But maybe I'm wrong. I wouldn't be surprised. Jürgen, you always teach me something.
No, it's just because while we were talking about it, and when it is a plant maintenance, you know, you can go the route to create the work order for a maintenance directly, or you can say it is a plant maintenance first, and then somebody goes over it and says, and now I want to have that and that plant maintenance into one, or
yeah, no, I definitely assumed that planned maintenance would show up as a project activity. But This is information I'm glad, I'm glad to understand. I do think it's something Microsoft could fix pretty easily.
Well, I'll be looking for that in the near term, since we're looking into asset management now. So.
Right. Now, the big area where I'm really excited about the future is more intelligence behind action messages. Imagine a world where Copilot sees that for a particular item 2 years ago, you made it with a different BOM. Perhaps because the material that you wanted to use was out and somebody was able to substitute something without any kind of declaring that that's a substitute. I can see a day when Copilot basically says, oh, you did this 2 years ago. Is that a possible solution here? Or also, and to me, even more exciting, one of the easiest ways to solve action messages is changing quantities on orders, right? When most people, they like to make this many at a time because they want to spread the setup cost. So the amount you need for a particular sales order might be a small fraction of that entire quantity. But because you're trying to make the whole order, the action message is going to say it can't be done, right? But by doing the explode down, you will see what's on hand. You will see how many you could make. I would love to see Copilot basically mining that data and giving you a potential solution. Like if you just reduce this from 1,000 to 820, you've got enough stock, maybe 3 levels down in the bottom, right? That would be cool.
Very true.
Well, I had fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike.
Great
Thank you.
discussion. Great discussion, everybody. And speaking of that, just a couple more slides here real quick so we wrap up. Just any other questions, and looks like we don't have too many of us left on here. And I guess the next thing I'd go to is just remind we have 2 more meetings this year. So please reach out to myself or Tom, Tad, if you have ideas for what we should cover in those meetings. And with that, anybody have anything else, or we'll wrap up a few minutes early?
Excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
All righty. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
It's nice meeting you all. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye bye.